Hey everyone, it's Laurel Beard here, and I'm here with a card today from start to finish here. This is the card I'm going to be making in the video, and it features some stamping, die cutting, heat embossing, and a little bit of textured spray, and distressings. So this is the stamp and die set I'm going to be using. It's from the Essentials by Ellen line. It's the Bold Blooms stamp set and coordinating die. And I'm going to be stamping the biggest flower there. So that is a piece of watercolor cardstock that I just trimmed down to fit that flower, because I'm going to be running it through my die cutting machine here. I'm using the Misty throughout this entire card here. The Misty stands for the most incredible stamping tool invented, and I absolutely love it. You've seen me use it in other videos. And I'm just going to ink up my flower here with some Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink that's fantastic for heat embossing. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down onto my watercolor cardstock here. I do a little double stamp, just want to make sure I get the whole entire flower stamped there with that Versamark ink. This is some embossing powder by Ranger. It's called Enchanted Gold. It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not a big fan of gold, but this gold is so pretty. It's like a buttery gold. It is so stinking pretty. It makes me want to go eat butter. Doesn't it make you want to go eat some butter? So I'm heat setting that with my heat tool here. You can see it start to get shiny, a little bit darker as it melts. I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to work on my card panel here. I'm going to be using two different colors, Cracked Pistachio, which is the color I'm laying down, and then in a little bit I'm going to go in and add some of that Abandoned Coral. The Cracked Pistachio was from the January 2015 release, and the Abandoned Coral is the February 2015 release. If you are not aware, Ranger is releasing a new distress ink each month, so this is January and February. Now I'm going in and just covering that card panel there with that Cracked Pistachio. You could take that ink pad and put it direct to the card panel if you want, but I wanted that soft blending look, so I'm using a round blending tool here. Then I'm going around the edges just a little bit to deepen up the edges. Now I'm going to grab that coordinating die here, again from the Bold Bloom stamp set, and I'm just going to line that up right over my embossed flower here and then run that through my die cutting machine. I'm going to secure that die in place with some sticky tape. That's some kind of painter's tape, I believe. You can use washi tape or surgical tape, anything that you have that's not super tacky. And then when you're done, you'll just carefully peel off your paper here. This is where using non-tacky tape comes into place, because you don't want to rip your paper. And then you get this beautiful embossed flower. It's just quite pretty. I am going to show it to you, I promise. But apparently I wanted to show you putting my product away. There it is, see? So now I'm trying to figure out how to tie in this beautiful color, this Abandoned Coral color. I just think it's so pretty. So I'm going to watercolor in that flower. So I just smushed some of that color down onto my craft sheet and then squirted it with a little bit of water. Now I'm going in with just a wet paintbrush with some clean water. I put that down on the die cut piece first, and now I'm going in and adding that color. And because I put the water down first, that water is doing all of the blending for me. It's doing all of the work. And that gold is going to resist all of that watercolor I'm laying down. So that heat embossed gold acts as a resist, so I'll be able to wipe that away. I just think these two colors are just so pretty together, the gold and the coral, and then you're going to tie it in with that beautiful green from the Cracked Pistachio. I just love this little color scheme that's coming together here. So you can see I'm dabbing some of it away. I didn't want puddles all over it. Anytime I do watercoloring, I always keep some kind of cloth nearby so I can dab away my mistakes or puddles or whatever. So now it's time to add some leaves, because I got to have some leaves for my pretty flower here. So I'm just kind of lining up where I'm probably going to end up putting that flower so I can get an idea of where I want those leaves to go. That set also comes with some solid images as well. It comes with a leaf and a solid flower, which I think is great. So you have these bold outline images, and you also have some solid images as well. So again, I'm pulling out my Misty on my ridiculously messy work surface. You can see nothing holds me back whatsoever. I just made a little bit of room for it. I'm using an anti-static bag. That's just like some powder I put down because I don't want any embossing powder to go where I don't want it. If you don't have anything like that, you can use a dryer sheet or even some baby powder. So I inked up those leaves with some Versamark ink again, and this time I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat set that with my tool as well. I always flick the back of my panel just to release any of that unwanted embossing powder there before I go ahead and do my heat setting. So it's hard to see right now from the angle, but that white is really going to pop when we finish the card. So now again, I'm eyeballing where I'm going to probably put that flower there, and it's time to figure out a sentiment and you know, where I'm going to put it and what sentiment I'm going to use. But before I do that, I decided to grab a little bit of Wild Honey Distress ink. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my paintbrush, which you didn't see. I have a little jug of water off camera there. And I'm just going to paint on a little bit of that Wild Honey. Because I always keep that rag nearby, I'm going to go and pull some of that color away. I just wanted a very soft kind of brown tint to these flowers. I didn't want them too brown because I didn't want them to look dead. But I wanted to add a little bit of color to it, so I'm just going to kind of dab a little bit of away, and I think that gives a nice little glow almost. So I'm kind of liking how that's going together, so now it's time to figure out what in the world I'm going to do with the sentiment. I don't know about you, but sentiments usually are, and they shouldn't be, they should be the first thing, but they're the last things I usually think about when I'm making a card, which is kind of silly. I decided while I'm thinking in my mind where to put that sentiment, I'm doing my water flicking. Because these are distress inks, which are formulated to react with water, I flicked on some clean water with my paintbrush, and that distress ink immediately starts to react with that water. I don't know if you can pick it up there, but you can see those little water splotches that are forming there. So I'm going to dab some of it away, and it almost removes some of that color, and then it adds just that cool, like, watercolored, splotchy background look. I just love doing that with the distress inks. Now I'm going to add a little bit more color to that flower there. So I've smooshed. I feel like every time I say smooshed, I have to say it twice. I don't know why. So I'm going to add a little bit of color here and a little bit of color there, just to add a little bit more dimension to this flower. And then I promise, well, I'm not done with the flower, but at least I'm done with the watercoloring of the flower. So I'm using this sentiment stamp set from Ellen Hutson called Fancy Things. Again, this whole time while I'm doing all this, I'm trying to think of where I'm putting my sentiment. And what sentiment I'm using, because at this point I had no idea. But you can never go wrong with a thank you card. So I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of create a little saying here that says thanks so much. You can build on your sentiments with this set, and I just think it's a fantastic stamp set. And I also love the scripty font that's in this set. So check it out. I think you'll like it. So I'm kind of lining that up where I want it on my card panel, and then I'm going to pick it up with the Door of the Misty. I'm going to ink that up again with some Versamark ink, and then I'm going to sprinkle on that same white embossing powder that we used for the leaves, and then I'll heat set that with my heat tool as well. And then I'll have a nice heat embossed sentiment that ties in with those heat embossed leaves, that ties in with the heat embossed flower. Do you see? I got a little heat embossed theme going on here, don't I? I tend to keep the embossing powders that I use the most of in these little containers. You can use little containers you can get at the grocery store even, but I find the embossing powders that I reach for the most often, I don't want to have to take the time to funnel it all back into the little containers that came in, so I keep my white, my clear, my liquid platinum, those kinds of things I keep in little tubs like this in a drawer. This is a standard A2 sized card base. It's Nina Solar White, and I just folded it as a top folding card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I took my Versamark ink pad and smeared it on both sides of my card here, because a little border on each side is going to be peeking through. And I'm taking that same Enchanted Gold embossing powder and sprinkling it down here on the sides of my card. And that's going to tie in with the embossed rose. I just love this buttery gold yumminess. It's just so pretty. This is one I probably should have put in a bigger container, because I do reach for this quite often as well. And you can see that embossing powder as it melts. Isn't that neat? I just love watching embossing powder melt. So now I'm going to go and add some adhesive to the back of that watercolored panel that we just did there, and I'm going to apply that down to the center of my card, and then you'll see that on each side I'll have a little bit of those gold strips peeking out to the left and the right. So I just think that's so fun, and it really will pull everything together. So now I'm going to pop up that rose there with some dimensional tape. They have this is the Scotch roll that I'm using, but they have squares and circles. They have all kinds of dimensional tape here. So I'm just going to peel off the backing paper here, and adding this bit of dimension is fun for your card, and it doesn't add any extra postage when you are going to put this through the mail. So I told you that I wasn't quite done with my flower, and I'm not, but before I get to it, I'm going to go around the edges of my card base here and just go in around the top and the left and the right a little bit with that abandoned coral, just to tie everything together. I grabbed my Wink of Stella glitter brush pen, and I'm just painting on some glitter over that watercolor, and then I promise I'm done with that flower. The Wink of Stella actually is a little brush tip there, and it puts out a nice stream of really soft glitter, and I just think it's so pretty. This is some paper I literally got out of my garbage can because I want to cover up that flower, and I'm using some of this Irresistible texture spray. This is in the color Wedding Dress, and I'm just going to flick it on with a stick rather than use the spray. I do it this way because I feel like I have a little bit more control over where the sprays go. And then, as always, I keep a cloth, nearby, so I'm going to dab the little bit of texture away from the sentiment. I thought that was a little bit too distracting, and then that's the card. That texture spray is super cool. It's hard to pick up on the camera, but it dries and it leaves this raised, just textury look. Here's a close-up at the flower with that glitter on it, which I just think is so pretty, and it really ties in with that gold embossing powder as well. And here's a look at the finished card. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.